श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिनी व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भाम् शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। In this text, Upadesha Saaram, we have just concluded a very important section called the essence of the Upanishads. Essence of Jnana Yoga from 16th verse up to 20th. Now, what is the means that Maharishi mentions is Nija Vicharanam, or it is the direct path of inquiry. Now, it is so direct that we cannot come to this direct marga directly, immediately. And that is why Maharishi has mentioned all the preparatory sadhanas. Karma Yoga should be our lifeline, the base. And then Japa, Dhyanam, Puja, Pranayama, all these meditation, all these prepare the mind to one day take up the Arjava direct path of self-inquiry. So that we covered briefly. And what are the steps? Let us see the steps of this self-inquiry. The first step is that let us take the world. The world, how is the world perceived? Is it perceived outside of us or inside of us? Yeah, a student of Vedanta will say the whole world is perceived in the mind. Yeah, but right now I am seeing all of you outside of me, right? And you are all seeing me also outside of your home, outside of your mind. Yeah, this is what appears. But we have just seen that any perception in the world, like this flower. This flower, let us assume it is symbolic of the world. So the flower perception happens in the mind as a flower vritti. And the flower vritti is flower namarupa plus consciousness. Because the mind is glowing and lit up with consciousness. That is how I am perceiving the flower. So we say that the mind assumes the form of a flower to be able to see the flower. So you take anything in the world, the remotest galaxy, and a person, a fruit, stable, sentient, insentient, all of them are nothing but a bunch of vrittis in our mind. So now the same situation, if there are 10 people like our room, we will perceive it in 10 different ways because the mind is the mirror. And as Shankaracharya says in Dakshinamurti Stotram, Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari. So the world or any perception is a reflection in the mirror like mind, or it is an image on the screen like mind. Yeah? As is my mind, if it is sattvic, there will be a sattvic reflection. If it is tamasic, there will be a tamasic understanding, interpretation of the world, right? That is the step one. To understand that the world is not outside, but it is a cognitive vritti in the mind. Step one. Now, step two is what happens in the mind. So, in the mind, we see that the mind is like a playground, which is very sentient and conscious. And in that playground, we have all the idam vrittis. Yeah? Idam pushpam, idam phalam, idam chair, idam person, idam some memory. Yeah? And all these idam vrittis, what will they do? They have to connect to their supervisor. I told you the example, idam vrittis are like the daily wage employees. They will connect or relate to aham vritti. So that aham vritti is who I think I am. That is called ahankara in Sanskritam, ego in English, or the individual I notion, aham karoti iti ahankara. So right now, all these ahankaras, we are assembled in crest. Ahankara is writing notes, ahankara is talking, ahankara is listening, ahankara may be sleeping or mostly awake. So ahankara is that I notion in the mind identified with one particular body and mind. So ahankara is fixed. But the idam vrittis keep changing, right? And so aham, mama, mahyam, through that we see that how the whole world perception takes place in the mind. Step 2. Now, in step 3, what happens is that Maharishi says, now see the world has disappeared into the mind. Okay, and in the mind we have all the vrittis and they all are centered on aham, ahankara. Now let us inquire into ahankara. Is the ahankara permanent? What is the source of the ahankara? And then we see that, I am not always Swamini, only for a few waking hours, right? In samadhi, in deep sleep state, in also deep meditation. Ahankara is not there. It goes to sleep. So the ahankara also dissolves. It comes and goes. So then the name we give to something that is agama payanaha, that arrives and departs. Yeah, that is mithya. Then when the question comes, okay, then is there anything permanent? Then who am I? If I'm not the mind, if I'm not the ahankara, and then who am I? Then in the verse last session we saw that. So when this ahankara also resolves, ahankara is understood as mithya. Ahankara rises in the waking state and then dreams and then drops in the deep sleep state. Yeah. But then there is a commonality in all the 3 avasthas. And that Maharishi says is aham aham. Aham aham is the avasthatraya sakshi. Yeah. And that was described as Parama Purna Sat. That is limitless, pure consciousness. That is fullness, Purnam, and Sat. Sat is pure existence. So this is called the method of inquiry. That is, we turn the torchlight, the mind is turned upon itself. Yeah, where did the mind come from? The mind has borrowed the sentience, like the moon borrows the sunlight. So it cannot be independently existing, the mind. The mind goes out to sleep and then awakes and then dreams. So the mind along with ahankara and all the idam vrittis come and go. They are not permanent. Then what is the original permanent? That is the Sakshi Chaitanyam. And that's Purati. That's Purati, it shines. It shines as the real I. Yeah, so that's why we say the other I, ahankara, not that it is fake or imposter. It is a transactional vyavaharika I. Yeah? It is the individuality. Now, can I really see this original I? No, because it is oneself. This is such a great wonder in Ishvara Srishti, that we all have eyes. And these 2 eyes perceive the whole world, but they cannot see themselves. We cannot see our own face or our own eyes except in a mirror or when somebody describes. Remember the Dhyana Shloka of the Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindayata Patra Netra. The Vyasacharya's eyes were described as the 2 beautifully blossomed lotus petals. Even Vyasacharya cannot see his own eyes. Had to be described. So, our face we can only see in a mirror. So to the ahankara, the world and all the vrittis are like images and reflections in the mirror-like mind. And when the mirror is taken away, reflection is not there. So when the mind sleeps, then there is no world, no time, no space. But are you there? Yes, because we wake up after a deep sleep and say, Aham Swapnam. I slept well and I did not know anything. I was there. So that is the I that Maharishi wants us to investigate into and arrive at. And that is the Aham or pure Sakshi or Chaitanyam. So Atma cannot, and that Atma, can it be negated? Can it disappear like the Ahankara? No. Why? Because it never came in the first place. Right? Atma ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranaha. Atma was never put together that it will decline. Atma never was born that it will decay and disappear. Atma simply was, is, and will be. So that is the nature of Sat, and which is Chit. So that is what we saw in the last session of Upadesha Saaram. Now, if the question is asked that how do you say that Atma is independently existing? It is the only independently existing Satyam. Whereas everything else, we just saw by the method of inquiry, is dependent. World is dependent on mind. Mind is dependent on Ahankara. Ahankara is dependent on Atma. Right? So, everything folding back. And then when we wake up in the morning, in the reverse order, everything is going to come out. Right? First, I notion, Ahankara, we wake up with. And then we have a sense of orientation, and then slowly the mind will be activated, then the world perception will return. So that is how this perception works. So now, suppose somebody says there's aham, that is Ishvara aham. The Sakshi, can it be negated? No. The answer is, today I came early here to press, I was the first person. So, and I said, oh, there is nobody here yet. Or in the Zoom session, if I say, oh, nobody has logged in, that means there is no person, but there has to be somebody to say there is nobody. And that's the negator, right? So the negator cannot be negated. So that pure consciousness, which is witnessing the waking state vrittis, dream state vrittis, and no vrittis in the deep sleep, is witnessing the absence of experience in Sushupti Avastha. And then everything comes back. So it is the Sakshi observer. And so the Sakshi we cannot negate. That the negator cannot be negated. Why? Because it is Abadhita Satyam. It is the Satyam in the 3 periods of time. And, there is no arriving and departing like Anatma entities. Okay? All right. So now let us go to the verse number 21, where we're going to see about this Sakshi Atma. We will chant it first 2 times. Idamaham padabhikyamandvaham. Idamaham padabhikyamandvaham. Ahami linake pyalaya sattaya. Ahamilinake pyalaya sattaya. Ahamilinake pyalaya sattaya. Ahamilinake pyalaya sattaya. Idamaham padabhikyamandvaham. So here, now we have to understand that Maharishi is talking about 2 I's. Yeah? I. That is 2 ahams. Now, what are the 2 ahams we are going to see in this shloka? Idam aham pada abhikyam anvaham. So this aham, idam aham pada. Pada means word. Abhikya means that which is called. So, what is the meaning of the word padam aham? Idam aham pada abhikyam anvaham. Anvaham means daily. Daily. Anu aham. Next line is ahami leenake api alaya sattaya. So the aham, when it becomes what? Leenake api. Leenake means when the aham dissolves. Now which aham is this? Ahankara aham. Yeah? Only ahankara aham appears and disappears, right? We have already analyzed it in depth. So the second line, let's take up first. Aham, ahami, leenake is sati saptami. So when the ahankara aham becomes dissolved, yeah, dissolved in deep sleep, it can dissolve. Samadhi, it can dissolve. Deep meditation also, it can dissolve. Yeah. Ahami, leenake, api, alaya sattaya. But the other aham is alaya sat. Now, laya means dissolve. But the original aham is alaya. Alaya means destruction-free existence it has. There is no srishti for that aham. Aham. There is no sthiti and there is no laya. You can say there is permanent sthiti. Yeah. So, that is the second line. So, even though this ahankara aham comes and goes, yeah, but the aham is unaffected. It is a sakshi. It is watching. This ahankara. It does not go to sleep, does not dream, and cannot wake up also. The aham. Now the first quarter says idam aham pada abhikyam anvaham. So this aham, which is watching the ahankara aham, is the real aham. Yeah? Some Mahatmas, they call this consciousness aham with a capital I for Ishvara. And Ramana Maharshi calls it with a double, aham. Okay? And one aham will be ahankara. So the ahankara, when it resolves daily in sleep, it is like a laya. We are all going through this mini laya every night, isn't it? It's like death. Sometimes they say, death is like sleep only, no? Death means what? It's a sleep in between two births. And this is happening on a daily basis also. Ahankara dies or sleeps, and mind is switched off. Yeah, software is switching off. But the Sakshi is aware. But still some activity is happening. Breathing, respiration, physiological functions, archiving, tissue repair, all this is going on. And who is the Sakshi? Aham. Okay. So here, in fact, we see that there are two meanings for aham. One aham is the vachyartha or literal meaning. Vachyartha literal meaning means aham is the ahankara that is identified with this birth, with this prarabdha, with this body, mind, sense, thought. So I say I am so and so, and parent, child, daughter, wife, husband, boss, employee, all this. Yeah, this is the immediate meaning of aham. Then the second meaning is the implied meaning of aham, that is called lakshyartha. Lakshyartha means it will go deeper and deeper, crossing all the dimensions of our personality. And that Maharishi says that is Parama Purna Sat. So Satchit Ananda Atma is the implied meaning of aham, lakshyartha. Whereas the immediate meaning will be this dehi, this individual. Supposing I point a finger, and say, Tvam, you. So, do I mean the physical you, 5 feet, 5 inches, and female, fair, dark, short, tall, parent? That is what I see with the gross. But my finger can go deeper and deeper and cross your mental personality, your, Vijnanamaya Kosha, all the koshas, and I can rest the finger on the Atma. And that is what our greeting means, isn't it? Namaste, Namaha Te Astu. So, my namaskara is not done to just the physical individual, but it goes deeper and greets the same divinity that is there in each one of us. Namaste. That is called Lakshyartha, implied meaning of aham. So we have to see how Maharishi toggles between the two ahams, right? One aham is ahankara, immediate meaning, vachyartha, and two ahams we can take as Ishvara, and that is Parama Purna Sat and pure consciousness. Okay, and that real I cannot be negated. Yeah? It cannot be negated, and that is the non-negatable Satyam. Satyam of anything. Even you come back to the flower, Namarupa will be negated in just a few hours, gone. But the Sat, the pure existence upon which Namarupa is superimposed, is simply there. And there is no Nasha for that Sat. Okay? And so this aham cannot disappear because it never came. It is Nitya Vastu. And it is the point of emergence. After the night sleep, next morning, what happens? That the mind and the ahankara and the whole world will return. That's a point of emergence. And then the next day, evening or night, whenever you fall asleep, everything collapses back into aham. So safe custody. Nothing is damaged or lost. Just like the hibernate mode in our computer, next morning we boot it up and all the settings are there. It's so that deep sleep is like a deep freeze state. Temporarily dysfunctional and everything is switched off because maintenance has to happen, and the next morning it's all back. So, really speaking, there is only one I. Okay, that is Chaitanyam. So when that Chaitanyam is identified with the Anatma bodies, it becomes the Jiva bird. And when by inquiry it understands that, oh, my Swarupa is really Sakshi Chaitanyam, then it is a Sakshi bird. But Mundaka, we saw how there are two birds perched on the same vriksha, body tree, Samane vrikshe. Two birds are there, but the Jiva bird is suffering and Sakshi bird is enjoying, effulgent. So the whole path of inquiry is to, merge both the birds and to realize that there is only one aham, and that is Atma. So the ahankara is a mysterious entity which is in between the pure consciousness and the body. That is why manaha eva karanam bandha mokshayoho manishanam. The mind, when it is, hijacked by the ahankara, becomes bondage. And the mind, when it is served by the ahankara, sattvic ahankara, will do inquiry and bring the mind to aham. That is moksha. Right? So, liberation and bondage is all in this mind and all in the hands of the ahankara. So, this jnani, this jnani also has an ahankara. It's not completely absent in a jnani, but the ahankara is called badhita ahankara. There is only a lesha. It is just an abhasa, like our shadow. And the jnani is fully aware that he or she is aham. But there is a misconception, that the jnani is perhaps indifferent or insensitive to the world happenings, always withdrawn into the cave of one's heart. No. The jnani will be extra compassionate, will be alert, will be sensitive, and he will be upholding dharma and loka sangraha, right? In fact, Pujya Swamiji said the jnanis are the only normal people in the world. And Swamiji would define enlightenment as a lightened mind. We all go about in the world, we think we are carrying the burden of the world in our mind. Is it possible? No. So, a lightened mind means you give up the kartritvam and bhoktritvam and you don't think that you are really in charge and responsible for everyone and everything. Ishvara is in charge and I do what is to be done. So with that attitude, I can really relax. The mind is lightened and a lightened mind is enlightenment. So this is the direct path called Nija Vicharanam. So now the steps are clear to us, and the goal is also clear. Goal is freedom from bondage, moksha. But what is the technique? And now Maharishi is going to come and present a technique, and to none of you, this technique is going to be unfamiliar. Notice my double negative. That means it is a technique which is very, very well known. And what is that? Panchakosha Viveka. Panchakosha Viveka Prakriya is going to come in the next shloka. And we have seen it a number of times. Where all have we seen it? Tattva Bodha, Atma Bodha, then Viveka Chudamani, Rama Gita. Yeah. But really the original source of this Panchakosha Vivaranam comes in the Taittiriya Upanishad. And I will mention it. First, let us come to the shloka number 22. Vigrahendriya pranaditamaha. Vigrahendriya pranaditamaha. Vigrahendriya pranaditamaha. Vigrahendriya pranaditamaha. Nahame kasat tajadam pyasat. Nahame kasat tajadam pyasat. Nahame kasat tajadam pyasat. Nahame kasat tajadam pyasat. Vigrahendriya pranaditamaha. Nahame kasat tajadam pyasat. Now, Maharishi, as his style is very, very cryptic, but very beautiful, because so many topics are compressed into one word, and that is called in Sanskritam samasa, a compound word. So we have to decode the words. Like the first one, Vigraha, Indriya, Prana, Dhi, Tamaha. How many words have we broken it into? 5. Referring to the 5 koshas. So Vigraha means a body. So referring to the Sthula Shariram, Annamaya kosha. Indriya is a little bit out of sequence. Indriya refers to the Manomaya kosha because of the Jnanendriyani. Okay, sense organs, where are they? Manomaya kosha, or the subtle body. Then Prana, the vital forces, are there in the Pranamaya kosha or subtle body. And he refers to Vijnanamaya kosha, the intellect. And finally, Tamaha. So by elimination, Tamaha has to be Anandamaya kosha. Yeah. Now we have seen this in detail, how there are the 3 bodies, right? Gross, subtle and causal. And they can be viewed as the Panchakoshas, right? Sthula Shariram is the Annamaya kosha. Then Pranamaya, Manomaya and Vijnanamaya are the subtle body. And then finally, Anandamaya kosha is the causal body, right? So here, in one word, Maharishi has compressed the 5 koshas and says, Vigrahendriya pranadhitamaha. What? Next line, na aham. I am none of these. Yeah. Why? Because each of the koshas, is it not drishyam? It's perceived. Then it is agamapainaha. It is put together, so it is subject to vikaras, change, and it appears and disappears. Right? The bodies also have a date of expiry, and it is experienced by me. No? So na aham, I am none of these koshas. No? Then what am I? Eka sat. Second line, notice na aham eka sat. So I am that sat principle. I am, in the language of Tattva Bodha, Panchakoshatitaha. I am atitaha. I am that, beyond the 5 koshas. Now, why am I not the Panchakoshas, any one of them? The last quarter, Tat Jadam, in the mantra, Tat Jadam, because Anatma is Jadam. Jadam means inert. Jada means matter principle. Yeah, like the table and the chair, they are also put together by the carpenter. So Ishvara by the Maya Shakti has put together these bodies. Yeah, and then there is this jiva, the sentient jiva. Then the last word, he asat. Na aham ekasat tat jadam he asat. Now, asat means mithya, exactly. Now, asat also we can understand as false, right? False. Now, but in the context of Vedanta, asat will be mithya. And mithya is not non-existent, but mithya exists. It is experientially true. It is drishya. I experience it. Don't I experience my body? Weight, especially. Yeah. But it is not permanent. It is changing. We saw the definitions now. All that jayate, vartate, asti, viparinamate, apakshiyate, nashyati. There's a shadvikaravat body. Then the mind is changing. Yeah. So all these panchakoshas, each one of them is jadam and it is asat, mithya, and hence Maharishi says, na aham. I am none of them. Why only our bodies? The whole world is jadam. In it, we just saw that in the recap today, that the world shines in my mind. I am giving reality to the world. Otherwise, world is jadam. The world does not say, oh, look, here I am. No. I, ahankara, is attaching to the idam vrittis, world perceptions, which are entering through the sense organs, the mind. And in the mind, there are all these cognitions, and cognitions are perceived and presented to the ahankara. Right? So the world is also jadam, and the bodies which are a part of the world, they are also jadam. So the only independently existing sentient conscious being is Atma. Aham, aham. And that's why we have those mantras, no? Natatra suryo bhati, na chandra tarakam, nima vidyato bhanti, kutoyam agnihi. So all the luminaries you see out there, the sun, the moon, fire, lightning, yeah, all of them, anubhati, they are shining because your mind is shining by the light of Atma. And because you are perceiving it with your sentient mind and sentient eyes, they are valid and present for you. Yeah? When we close our eyes, no sun, right? That's why in sleep, no sun, no moon, no time, space, world, no, nothing is there. Because mind is not there. So we have to remember that thing, that the mind gives a reality to the world. Yeah. And we'll come to that about how the jnanis will never give absolute reality to the world. Whereas a worldly person, what will his understanding be? I am born in this world and I am this mind, this is how I think, and this is my body, and I play roles in the world. So the world will give me some sukham now, and then if some dukkam comes, I blame the world. So it's a completely diagonally opposite perception. Whereas the world is neither sukha hetu nor dukkha hetu. My own mind. Like that poet said, mind can make a heaven out of hell and a hell out of heaven. Yeah, the cause of bondage is in my mind and release is also in my mind. Okay? So here, coming back to the Panchakoshas, the familiar prakriya, why I am none of these koshas? Because these koshas are dimensions of my personality. But just like, I say, I'm not my car. I'm not the building. I'm not the clothes that I'm wearing or the ornaments. Why? Because I wear the clothes. I drive the car. I live in the house. I use all these. But I am not any one of them. So too, Krishna says in chapter 13 of the Gita, Idam Shariram Kaunteya Kshetra Vidhyate. So just like your earrings and your car and your table chair and house even, your body and mind is also not you, but your karanas. So your karanas, they are like an apartment where you live, but you are none of them. So this is how, this Panchakosha Viveka works. Again, the method is Nija Vicharanam. And in the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a beautiful section. There's a beautiful section in the Brahmananda Valli, where there's a story about a sage called Varuna. Varuna is a very rich and affluent sage. He has a son called Varuni or Bhrigu. It's a very beautiful story, illustrates the Panchakosha Vidika. So one day, this Bhrigu, the son, comes to the father and says, "Oh father, you're always talking about Brahma, Atma, Chaitanyam. Tell me, what is that Brahma?" He says, "Adihi Bhagavo Brahmeti." Then the father says, very wise father, he says, "Okay, my dear son, you do tapas, and by your own tapas, you find out what is Brahma, who or what is Brahma, but I will give you a clue." And what is the clue the father gives? Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena cha tani jivanti yam prayantyapi samvishanti tat vijijñāsasva. So the clue is that from which all the beings have come, by which all the beings are sustained, and into which everything will return, you find out that by your own tapas. Go meditate. So the obedient son, unlike children of today, he goes to the deep jungles and meditates. Then after some time he returns to the father and says, "I have the answer." And his answer is, "Annam Brahmeti Vyajana." It is Annam, father, because all beings are born of food, the body modification of food, and they're sustained by food, they live, and they return back to food. So the reply was only up to the Annamaya Kosha. So obviously the father says, what does he say? Now you do further tapas. Tapasa, vijijñāsasva. You need to do more tapas, my dear. So he goes back again. Then this time he comes back and says what? Prano brahmeti vyajana. Prana, the vital sheath, that, is from which all living beings are born, by which they are sustained, and into which, they will return. Prana is the life source. Then again the father says, "No, my dear son, you're approaching the truth, but this is not the truth. Tapasa vijijñāsasva." Again you do further tapas. Then like that, again he returns and continues his nididhyasanam. And then he comes back and says, "This time I have to be right." He says, "Mano brahmeti vyajana." Manas, because the mind, by a sankalpa, it can create a world, it can dissolve the world, as we just saw. So the mind has to be the reason for life itself, no? Then the father says, "No." Again he says, "Tapasa vijijñāsasva." Then he goes and he comes back and says, "Vijñānam brahmeti vyajana." Vijñānamaya kosha. I am the intellect. What can be greater than the intellect which takes charge of life, which is the karta, bhokta, jiva, and determines and concludes, decision maker. Then again the father says, "No, tapasa vijijñāsasva." You do more tapas. Then finally this time he goes back and he returns, and only one kosha left. And he says, "Anando brahmeti vyajana. Anandat eva kalvimani bhutani jayante. Anandam prayante visamvishanti. Saisha bhargavi varuni vidya. Aramevyo man pratisthita. Ya evam veda pratitishthati. Annavan annado bhavati. Mahan bhavati prajaya pashubhir dhamma varchasena. Mahan kirtya." So he says, Anandamaya Kosha, that which one enjoys in deep sleep, in deep meditation, in samadhi, that must be the answer. And now the father says, "You're very, very close." Yeah, but even Anandamaya Kosha is a thin veil and like surrounding the pure consciousness. Why? Because Father wants to point out that each of the koshas is drishya vastu, can be objectified, perceived. Annamaya, we watch its growth, it waxes and wanes, right? Then pranamaya also, we can observe the breath, and by pranayama we can regulate the breath. So you can't be the sheet which you can regulate, right? And same logic for manas, manomaya kosha. There are so many thoughts, we just saw idam thoughts. And then by meditation, you can remove the thoughts, or you can say, no, I don't want this to dwell upon this memory thought. So I substitute it with another thought. So I can change my mind. So I cannot be the mind. And the same thing with intellect. So my judgments and my decisions about the world also are subject to change. So even though subtler and subtler koshas. Now coming to Anandamaya kosha, it is like, the moon is reflecting the sunlight. And if the moon says, I am the moonlight, it is not correct, right? So like that, the Anandam of pure consciousness is streaming, flowing into all the koshas. So we are experiencing Anandam as in degrees. Priya, Moda, Pramoda. Yeah, when a favorable situation happens, I am happy. I am in the Anandamaya kosha. But the Father says that the nature of pure consciousness, which is your real identity, which is aham, is fullness. Like the intrinsic nature of fire is always heat. Even in the coldest country like Siberia, fire will be hot. So your true nature is that which you asked me for. What is Brahma? That is your intrinsic nature, that is pure consciousness. But it appears to give some happiness through the Anandamaya kosha in deep sleep, deep meditation, or when you're happy about something. There's a fusion. So that is Anandam, but we see that happiness is experiential Anandam, isn't it? It goes away. Then we are back to the ground state, worrying about something, anxiety, but not so the Atma Ananda Sarupa Atma. So you see how these wise sage parents, how they would tell their children to experiment on their own, and that is why this Vidya is called Varuni Vidya, the Vidya given by Varuna to his son, that is Bhrigu. Then look at the Phalashruti which I just chanted. The person who owns up this Jnana Phalam, that is, I am indeed the Atma Sarupa Anandam, is Annavan and Nado Bhavati. He becomes affluent, he becomes famous, he becomes full of prana, and he will enjoy super health. Today we are treating the outermost koshas, right? But here what does Taittiriya Upanishad say? That your Atma is a source of true health. And all that virtuous, the glow and the health will stream from the innermost in the sense, subtlemost, Atma, to all the layers. Today, Vijnanamaya Kosha, our buddhis are bombarded by Google, by artificial intelligence, search engines, whatever we want, we type. That is not true intelligence. That is only memory-based intelligence. Shastra says, are you aware of the koshas? No? How strong and steady is that awareness in your mind? So the greater the awareness, the greater the intelligence. And that is the natural intelligence. Natural health, natural intelligence. And that's why Mahan Kirtya. These sages, even though they were anchored in this source of everything, they did not want to become famous. But fame will come to them because of the glory of this knowledge. And so, here in 22nd shloka, Maharishi says, the question, who am I? One has to stay with the question. And why am I not the Panchakoshas? For all the reasons we saw. It is Panchabhautikam, it is Drishyavastu, it is Agamapayinaha, and it is Savikari. Subject to change, it can be perceived, it can be used, it is put together, and it arrives and departs. So I can be none of these. Yeah? And yeah, so these koshas, they are very useful. Annamaya kosha, we have to keep all of them healthy, and that is why we need sadhanas. So the more pure Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya is, the closer we get to the subtlemost kosha, and we'll maintain very good health. Now let's see one more shloka, number 23rd. Sattvabhasika chitvaketara Sattvabhasika chitvaketara Tattaya hi chittaya hyaham Sattvabhasika chitvavekara Sattaya hi chittaya hyaham. This is again another cryptic verse, so you have to be patient. But if you have understood this verse, then there is nothing beyond. Yeah? You will have the doctorate of Vedanta. So, Sattvabhasika chit kva va itara. Okay, chit kva va itara. I'll just tell you the meaning of that. Chit kva va itara means, is there any other chit? Is there any other chit? Now, chit means what? Chaitanya. Consciousness. Okay. Now, Sattva Bhasika, Bhasika, means to illumine, to reveal. And Sattva here is not Sattva Guna, but it is Sat, the existence, the pure existence. Huh? So, is there another entity, another chit that will illumine Sat? Is the question in the first line. Is the question clear? Okay, now let me come back to our familiar topic, Satchidananda Atma. So we say Atma is Sat, Atma is Chit, Atma is Ananda. Okay, so let's leave the Ananda away for now. Sat and Chit, that's poor or endo. So Sat means pure existence. Okay, I told you, Sat is, this flower is hibiscus Namarupa plus Sat. The phone is Sat plus phone. Yeah. Water is water Namarupa plus Sat. So Sat is pure existence. Now what is Chit? Chit is knowingness, awareness. Yeah. Awareness. Now this flower, there is Sat. Is there Chit? No. The flower cannot know itself. It cannot know that it is different from a gulab, rose. It cannot know because there is no chit. Why is there no chit? Because no sukshma shariram. Whereas we are endowed with Sat already. Sat is there for everyone, be it Jadam or Chaitanyam. But in addition, wherever there is a mind, there will be Chit. And Chit means consciousness, Jnana Swarupa, knowingness. Okay? Are you clear about these two words? Sat and Chit. So now, here in this shloka, Maharishi is saying, do the Shastra says that there is one thing called Sat and one thing called Chit? No. Sadeva Chit, Chideva Sat. That is the first line. Sattva Bhasika Chitkva Va Itara. Is there another Chit that is going to illumine Sat? No. Sat Vastu is Nityam, the Nitya Vastu, and Chit is knowingness, awareness. So Atma is Sat and Chit at the same time. Okay? Like, the example, like you say, Dasharatha Putra, who's that? Sri Rama. I mean, Shatrughna, others also, but Dasharatha Putra, mainly Sri Rama. Then Sitapati, Sri Rama. Yeah. Although you use different words, right, for the same person, this is called Samanadhikaranyam in Sanskrit. Samanadhikaranyam means the locus or entity is one, but it has different names or different definitions. So Atma is Sat and Sadeva Chit, Chideva Sat. That is the understanding of this cryptic shloka number 23. Okay. So what that means is, see, when I say I am, or you take an example, Swamiji would say this. Supposing, one of your family members goes out of the home and returns a bit late at night. You close the doors, yeah? And then that person knocks on the door, yeah? Then you ask from inside, who is there? Will you ask? We better ask. Who is there? Then what will be the answer? None. Nanda, correct. It's me. That is Sat. Okay. Now that person will, unless he may be a salesman or your neighbor, then they will say something else, right? I'm your neighbor. I'm the salesperson. No, we are taking a familiar person. They will say, none. That's enough. So I am. That is Sat. Okay. So you don't go beyond that. If you say I'm female, I'm Indian, I'm Hindu, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a parent, I'm an IIT graduate, all that is anatma definitions. In fact, it is asat. Asat means mithya. But sat is your basic definition. I am. Now, when I say I am, I also know that I am. Is it not? So that sat is chit. I know that I am. Swamiji will say, some husbands will say, "Pooch ke batata hu." So they, so they are, like a joke, henpecked husbands, who always do what their wives tell them to do. And they will say that, I don't know whether I exist or not, let me confirm. So here the shloka says, Sadeva Chit, Chideva Sat. Second line, let's look at that. Sattayahi Chit, Chittayahi Aham. Exactly the same thing. So that Sat, pure existence, is Chit, and the Chit and Sat, He Aham. I am indeed Chit. The last line. Did you get it? So Sat and Chit are just synonyms, or two, in fact, Lakshana Vakya it's called, for the same Atma. And they go together. There is no division. So, the Sat, Chit, Ananda Atma can also be called as Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, or Asti Bhati Priyam. You take this flower again. This flower, Asti. The flower is there. But where is it? In my mind. So in my mind, flower vritti asti. Flower is, a reality for me in my mind. Then in my mind, I also know it's a flower. Isn't it? That is Chit. That is Chit. So Sat and Chit, they go together, basically. Okay. And so now you see all these teachings, like inquiry into the mind, how the world is negated first, then the mind is negated. Manasam tu kim naiva manasam. Maharishi said, if you inquire into the mind, there is no mind. No mind means what? It doesn't disappear. Mind is mithya. Asat means you have to take mithya meaning. Okay? So world is mithya, mind is mithya, ahankara is mithya. Then who am I? We have seen I am Satchit Atma. Aham. Now these teachings will appeal only to mumukshus. Yeah, mumukshus and those who have awakened from the worldly life. Why? Because a worldly average person will give total reality to the world. Whereas a mumukshu will always think, oh, this is not all about life, So I have to do pariksha. There is something else I need to know. And so, tat vijnanartham gurumeva vigachet shrotriyam brahmanishtam samit pani. Yeah? So the mumukshus, they pursue the higher truth, that Varuni Vidya or Brahma Vidya or Moksha Vidya, Raja Vidya, all these names are there. So So the mumukshu has understood what the swabhava of the jagat is drishta nashta swabhava. Or in Shankara's words, Nalini dalagata jalati taralam. The world is so unstable, unpredictable, like even a water droplet on the lotus petal. So why should I invest, all my energy and focus on the world? Will an intelligent person want to derive peace and happiness from this fleeting world? That is the mumukshu. So Maharishi is driving home the truth that inquire into the source of the ahankara and know your true nature and get the emotional independence. See, we are all born in the world. Are we born emotionally independent? Satchidananda Atma, anybody? Raise your hand. No, we are born very, very dependent, right? Dependent on mother's milk first, then, we have to be taught how to walk and talk, and then teachers, parents, society, and everything in the world. First, world dependence will be there. Then what happens? We come to God dependence. No? We start thinking, oh, there must be an intelligent creator, a principle, and then I pray and do all the sadhanas, I surrender, and all these preparatory sadhanas. Then the final stage is self-dependence. Self-dependence is that Ishvara that I'm worshipping outside, the creator is the created, shines in my own heart. Ishvara sarvabhutana hriddeshe ye arjuna tishtati. So, this is the Jiva Yatra. Jiva Yatra is to cognitively move away from the Drishya Prapancha, Drishya Varitam Chittamatmanaha. When the mind does Varitam, withdraws cognitively from the Drishya Prapancha through all this logic, Panchakosha, Neti Neti, and Karyakarana Prakriya, all these we've done, and then goes inwards through meditation to discover the source of everything. And that is right here and now, in one's own mind. Yeah? So, you see, the world by itself is not a problem. Yeah? But my dependence on the world is a problem. So, I am getting entangled in the world, and the world is not keeping me in bondage. Yeah? That is the vision of Veda. So, we'll stop here. Om Swasti Prajabhya Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahi Mahisha Go Brahmanebhya Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Kale Varshatu Parjanyah Prithvi Sasya Shalini Deshoyam Shobharahitah Brahmana Santu Nirbhayaः Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaः Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhavet Asato Ma Sargamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah Hari Om